let's have a great session. So welcome, Yu Ying.
Yeah. Everybody see my slides? Okay. Of course, I just realized I didn't even put in kind of the intro and the background and kind of the experience I'm coming to with this. So I've done product management and product leadership for close to 20 years as most recently, chief product officer, Barnes Noble Education in ed tech, and I was previously in fintech and big tech. Now, for the last 2 years, I've actually been focused on generative AI. So I was head of AI, specifically on AI transformation. So across six portfolio companies of a company acts like both a PE and a VC. Um, and through this process, not only did we do transformations, we constantly evaluated AI startups for both investment as well as to use within the company as part of transformation. Now, on top of that, so now I am independently advising companies, actually very specifically working with two, three clients currently to do that transformation for their product organization, product management organization, much including some of them are expanding into engineering, et cetera. So I don't have just a theory. I have some real experiences to share with you guys, and hopefully, if you're in that spot, that will be useful for you. Okay, so I break it down because everybody, from the CEO to board member to investor, you'll hear it a lot. Do AI. We got to do AI. And very often there's not much detail after that. You're going to be measured on it. You need to be successful. You're the leader. Figure it out, right? I see this constantly. So I broke it down, at least for the product organization, based on my experience of what I've done, these three components. The first piece is going to be upskilling. So this is in a bit of order, and I'll explain why towards the end, but I'll talk up through each piece. The first piece is upskilling. So we're looking at both tools, training, etc. But I'll go through the detailed strategy. The second piece then is the product strategy. So usually when they go, okay, let's do AI, what does that mean? Your workforce, then what you actually build. So that's the strategic piece on the second one. And yes, we're so beyond chatbots. And we'll talk through kind of the things you want to look at when you're integrating AI into your product strategy. And then the third one, this one gets ignored a lot. Most likely because number one, it's sensitive. Number two, it's actually quite difficult to do. But you need to redesign your organization once you kind of know where things are going with your upskilling, what are people able to actually cover and accomplish that is far different than what their roles are defined as today. You have new strategies. You're probably going to need new roles and skills. So you're a leader. What does that organization look like? What do those roles look like? Who are you hiring? Who are you keeping? Who are you promoting? So those are the three core pieces. And that there's other pieces as well, but these are the core ones that kind of go through for the overall transformation of making your product organization being a fully AI accelerated. Okay, so upskilling. Now, I will tell you that most times when I go in, most of the leaders that are already on board go, okay, I am totally ready to upskill. Here, you guys, you can go get some training. If there's like PRD writing tools, you come tell me. If there's QA test case writing tools, AI, like we'll buy it, right? I've seen that a lot. And I'm like, I can tell you that's where they start with. They actually, they will all get budget for it and they will go for it. And then after 6 months, be like, was I supposed to get some ROI out of that? People were like having fun with the tools, but did actually anything change with the whole team and productivity? No. So this is the process we actually go through. Where you'll see tool sets and training is actually at the end. What you have to start with, this is the part nobody really wants to do because it's kind of boring. It's also not that great, but the assessment and the goal. So a big part of it is you got to know where your people are at today. How much AI are they using? Right? What are they using it for? We have a lot of like this comes back that goes, yep, we're using it every single day, 90%. And then you kind of like, okay, what are you using it for? I'm writing emails. I'm like, awesome. Okay, that's a different starting point than half of your people like, I build like three things in Lovable to figure out my idea. I'm using deep research on Grok and right. That is really, really different. So you need to know where your team is at today. And a part of this that's hard to tease out is the mindset. right? So that's one of the hardest things. So usage, what do they use? You can get that out. You want the detailed use case. Does anyone have fear about this? How they feel about this? Concerns, right? So we always make sure we do surveys, um, anonymous. If you have a way for them, for people to tell you what they're afraid of, what their concerns are of being replaced, it's there, right? You need to give them an avenue to talk through it so that you're designing all of this so they don't nobody bulks, because I have had people literally go in and go, you know what, I'm going to give this entire AI program a zero, not because the program was bad, not because the tools are bad, not because what you were trying to do was bad, but because you never addressed their fear, right? Okay. And second part of the assessment is, with the assessment, you got to set the goals. You got to meet the team where they're at and then put them 3 steps above. Can your entire team become like a fully AI native, like how Lovable built their team? I will go through how they did that. That might not be the right goal right now, right? So if your core processes have one piece that's been uh, kind of what to call it, formalized inside an AI that everybody is reusing and have best practices in, maybe that's your goal. But this is key. You have to start here. You have to start here. Most don't. The second piece, I call it workflow versus outcomes. Now, I wrote it as workflow versus outcomes, but you're actually going to do both. And the successful stories, you actually proceed from workflows over to outcomes. The workflow piece is very simple. What are you doing today? Let's put an AI tool in so that the specific steps you're doing today happens faster, you get better results. So market research is the classic one, right? For those of us that already do market research, it takes a long time. You got to get the reports, you got to get the data, you got to figure out what are your sources, etc. Um, you can teach the team to use deep research as a feature that's across all the chatbots effectively. That step is the same step as before. Just with this AI feature, it sped that up. That workflow just got faster, and you can produce better results. It could do charts for you. You can do follow-ups. You can narrow it down to the segments, market, target market sizing, etc. Great way to start. And it's very easy for people to do uptakes on that will actually have impact over your entire team. Then actually what you really want to do after a while, where you kind of have these little AI pieces, usually when I first teach, it's okay, this is your normal workflow. Here's a piece that you do now, use AI and it's faster and better. Here's a piece of what you do now. If you have an AI tool or a specific way I do this, that's faster and better. Then outcomes. The thing I always go, okay, you have to understand that we're at a point where you as a leader, you understand what things can be done faster. What if something changes from it would take 2 to 4 weeks to now 15 minutes? In your mind, you're like, wait, I gotta rethink about this entire thing differently. Does then a single person take something from beginning to end versus, okay, I have the research, I hand over, then there's design, and then I hand over, and then there's prototyping, and then I hand over, right? So when I go outcomes, whole new ways to work. I'm teasing a little bit about the example we'll see later on. You can start to define things no longer as workflows, and let's just speed them up. You can start to define things of just focus on outcome and people owning outcomes, and AI kind of comes in through the entire thing to focus on outcome. It's just a very different way of thinking. Your workflow might not look like what it used to look like. Now, if I use research, uh, the research example, the thing I always say after I go, isn't this a great feature? Now you can do in 15 minutes what it would take in you weeks. I go, nobody does research for research sake. Right? We do market research to make a decision to go, should I take on a feature? Should I change my positioning? Should I do something? Should I decide on something? Right? Now, what often happens there is you probably have a product manager or analyst is like, okay, we're going to have new strategic decisions. You go do some research, bring back some insights. You do some user data, bring back some insights. you'll present, we'll talk together, and then, right? That's kind of usually how you get to a decision. Okay. Now, if you could do that in 15 minutes, what if you just sat together as a team in a meeting like this now? Okay, I'm going to pull up the AI. This is the directions we're talking about. Now we can live, interactive, discuss a strategic decision, have that data show up with the AI, and we can literally, as a team, look at pros and cons, et cetera, and go, okay, play devil's advocate. What about this? What is the competitor doing? Is that here? Okay, so is that a decision that we think we can align with? That's a, that's very different. That's focused on the outcome of what you were doing research for, and not the workflow of speeding up the research and the results of the research. That one is harder, but you always actually move from workflow to outcome, because you just start, people are going to be like, whoa, I do not work like this. Right. Okay. So that's the second. And the third one is actually the one that's most common. You guys don't need, uh, I think, too much details around that. But now you think through, okay, I have the assessment, I know where people are, I know what the goal is getting them to be. I will There are particular workflows where here's an AI that just sped that up. We're starting to go shift of certain pieces. What is the outcome? Let's focus on the outcome. Is there a different way to work for us to get to that outcome? If the process now takes 15 minutes instead of 2 weeks, how does that change? Right. Okay. Then at this point, you'll have very clear, like, oh, well, I should have the following tool sets. There's different trainings that comes with for these tool sets. In terms of training, very easily available. Okay, everybody, self-learn, share, etc. That might be the best way. Or for a certain piece, that's really what we really need, is something custom to us, etc. So that, based on hard-earned experiences and lessons, is how I would do upskilling. Now, the tool set and training, I just want to give you kind of the examples. I've taught most of these. Now, the ideation, the research phases in general, your major LLM tools are totally good enough. And in terms of content to learn, etc., whether it's just ad hoc people playing with it, having some prompts that you share around self-learning, easy to do, very well accessible for those in the product teams, because this is usually sitting with product management, product marketing, etc. Very easily just to pick up directly without anything custom. Of course, share prompt playbooks will make everybody consistent, but very easy to do directly on your own. The design and planning phase. So kind of depending on where you are, uh, I always say what I list is never the only set of tools, because new ones come out every day. But these are the ones I've taught and used so far. So your Claude in terms of artifacts, Figma Make, Lovable, V0, etc. So these kind of bridge this design, prototyping, planning phase. Part of this, in terms of what is out there, the content to learn these things. If you guys are familiar with a Maven, there's a lot of that's just available. Whether you just want to have your team have access to that and you reimburse, or you can now like do custom private cohorts. I do teach on Maven, etc. But also just in social media, in when I say social media here, I mean like YouTube. So, tutorials, because all of these platforms are also putting out tutorials on their own, because they're trying to evangelize the platform, how to use it for these phases. Um, it takes a little more organization. In general, you probably want a couple of people on your team that who is good at figuring this out, kind of find the ones that's relevant and have them go, okay, don't go search the internet. This is a couple of ones that I've done. You guys, if you want to take those, that's the best way to ramp up. I should say that Section AI, because I also teach with Section, also have some of this. Develop and test. This is the engineering piece. This is, in general, the tools that you've heard mentioned: Cursor, Replit, Windsurf, Claude Code. There's other ones like Aider, OpenCode, or just GitHub Copilot, in VS Code, etc., are the ones you'll have heard of. Now, this one is actually tricky. If you talk to your senior technical guys, this is starting to be the technical team. Some of them be like, yeah, I don't need any help. I can figure this out. Individually, they can. Our experience is if you want the entire team, this is now more of the product development, QA pieces, to use this consistently to have good outcome, no hallucinations. I tell you, the code does hallucinate, and so does the test cases. Yep, we're totally good to go. Yeah, you can't necessarily trust that. Okay. So to do this well, your senior tech guys will be like, I don't need any help. I got this. I will just figure it out. You're like, awesome for you. But to enable the whole team, what I've seen is only customized training works. You will need those senior guys to help you figure out prompt libraries, packs, and best practices because this has to be specific to your technical environment. What's your tech stack? What's your deployment? What's your code review process? Because outside of it, because I will tell you, one of my companies was totally like the guy's like, yeah, we totally got this. We'll do it. And afterwards, you're like, oh, so if you left them on their own, the developers want to use AI for the stuff they don't like to do. If they don't like to do, they don't like to review it. And neither does the code reviewer. So like hallucinations and bad things going through was it was just a psychological leading because what are you going to speed up? The stuff you hate to do. So it had to come whether manager driven or customized. Go, okay, here's our templates. Here's how we're going to do this. If you used AI to write the code, you have to handwrite yourself. You have to handwrite the test case to ensure some of these things. And we pulled that back. So uh, real world lessons. Those guys will tell you they don't need anything, but they do. Um, and then fourth one in terms the launch and the iteration. So this actually becomes less technical. Sometimes you'll be directly just working with the technical tools, and sometimes other ones will come in. In my experience, there's no template for this. There's no easy go, okay, you just do this and then we'll deal with the launch and the iteration, etc. That one is really specific if you want that piece to go into the entire workflow properly with AI actually linking it up. So in my experience so far, not saying that new tools will come out and be like, okay, now it's all done in an AI tool. Um, this part, it needs customized training to basically have it fit both your processes, your infrastructure, and your tool set. Yeah. Okay, so that's the tools. All right, I'm going to talk through. I've had a few experiences, obviously, working with more. This is not the earliest, was a middle one that I worked with. So this is a classic number one. We started with tools and training. We came in to train. I had my full training that I had built for something else with all of these tooling. And it actually was initiated from L&D as well. So the learning had both live, self-paced, and support, right? So uh, I was actually the trainer. In terms of the uptake for those who participate. So I'm telling you, you have in your org the guys who are like, I am totally ready for this. I've been playing with it on my own, kind of worked it in together, but didn't. Like they're like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I needed. I have live. I can ask my questions. I have self-learning. I can go repeat it. I have projects because they also had incentives for completion, etc. Those guys loved it. They were great. It was also actually a global team, but I was amazed. Some of them are showing up like really weird hours for the live piece. So it can work, but it's going to work for the ones who are ready for it, right? Okay. We started with the tools and training. So which means the ones that had the increase, they were go-getters. They self did everything. It did not propagate throughout the entire team because it wasn't templated. It wasn't built processing. The training and tools mismatch was really difficult for us. So obviously, I tell you, there's a lot of different tools that you can use. Whether or not the company actually decides that they should use those or give all those options, that's actually a separate thing. And in this case, it was misaligned. So I was trying to teach things. They're like, well, we don't really have access to that, but our thing is kind of this way. And like that little, when you train people, even sometimes when the tools match, but the use case doesn't make sense to them because that's not their workflow, right? We're working with a company that doesn't write PRDs. I have, as you might guess, I have a lot of training on PRDs using AI. They're like, okay. But the ones who are ready, like, okay, I totally know how to use that, even though their use case is PRDs and it's using Claude, even though we only have Copilot. But the majority group that was kind of like, well, I think I need to do this. They don't. It doesn't. There's no uptake. They're like, that's not really relevant for us. This is not that great, right? That's what you. That's what you get, and this is why you only have that percentage with the pickup. The others are just like that wasn't helpful. They had a very specific problem. They were global, um, but all the support was only. I think we were the U.S. time zone on the West Coast, so we could cover some, but they were fully global and some and. Not only the time zone, but the workflow globally is actually different, right? So some of their processes in terms of test cases or automation, they were different. But there's because this wasn't from the assessment to the process on up, it didn't match. So there was, like I said, no process assessment. There was no process change overall. And the hardest part, of course, there was no change management. We tend to forget change management or think that we don't need change management because usually who we see in all of this is the people who are gun ho and we're like, we're good to go. This is easy. This is etc. The ones you don't see are the ones that actually keeps your org from moving forward as a whole. So let well, I always click on the wrong one here. Okay, so that is upskill. I'm gonna pause a bit to see if we have questions on this section before I move into the next section. I don't know if anyone, because I can't see the chat. So
Yeah. I am curious for the group though too, because the sort of the self-paced learning modules, centralized like push out of rollout of how to use it. How many folks are like in your organization, or maybe it's your own organization, are pushing it out centrally versus having folks kind of use tools and hacks and then sharing those back to the group? I've heard like different ways, different organizations and different cultures.
yeah, so every organization I've worked with has a central one that pushes out. Uh, but the true effective ones are the ones within teams that start to share prompts because the central
Yeah.
one that goes out, uh, I curated a whole list of that when I first got to Peak Six, right? They're general. And then I get all these requests for specifics for their job. So the really useful thing is actually more specific for the job. The centralized pushing out one, what it does is it gives a signal for everybody that look, we care about your upskilling. We're providing this to you. So and we used to have incentives. That was just it's more at the beginning of the change management to get allow people to explore on their own. So the
Yeah.
true usefulness is actually in the decentralized.
Yeah. So I see Rebecca is saying that using Chat GPT for many aspects of product for about a year, from summarizing and synthesis of information to data analysis and competitive research, and also started using Perplexity and prototyping design tools. So like, are those originated from the individuals that say, hey, I'm using Perplexity to do this and sharing that out versus it being central and pushing it down?
So we're in a smaller organization, about 150 people, PE-backed startup that's scaling. And there's not a lot that really is coming down from the top. I'm pushing certain things with my team, but really just to get them trying things out and evaluating. One of the things I've been doing recently with the prototyping and design tools is I'm actually pairing up a PM with a designer
Mm.
to evaluate different tools. And we have a list of 6 or 7 so that they can try it and like see what the differences are and come back to the team, show that. So like today we just did a demo from one of the people in my team that was showing using vo.dev. So I find that to be more effective because
Mhm.
one,
Yeah.
the pairing seems to help because some of them are, I don't know, more reluctant than others to jump in, and others are like, yeah, I want to try it out. So that helps.
Yeah. I just had a conversation with a former CPO at financial services organization. And, typically when she was running her offsites, you don't normally go through like the strategy and the planning and all of those pieces. She actually scrapped that, like in the context of where we are, and had more of a, what is everybody doing as far as leveraging AI to make your job better? Also, if you were to use it, how could we make our products better, as well as, if someone else were really to use AI um, and they could build something that would eat our lunch, what would that be? And so it was really more of a sort of like ground up of like, what is everybody using, and sort of bubbling that up so that it could share across. And it's a relatively like large organization, so I thought that was interesting, because you're kind of saying that for a small organization, but even large organizations, in order to move fast, a lot of that expertise is going to come from the ground up. So
Yeah.
One
We also
other
feel the
thing
most
that
effective that way.
so I wanted to mention one other thing, which is partly a question. So one of the things that I'm seeing is that a lot of the roles are changing. And um, so part of why I also decided to pair up the PM and the designer is because I'm not even sure who's going to be doing this in the future. Um, the tools are making it so easy to just, code and create prototypes and do product management work, whether it's PRDs, writing stories. So I'm curious what you're seeing and whether you're seeing, and like how do you think that's going to evolve in terms of what the roles are?
Yeah, I actually cover that at the organization redesign piece, but um, so people, yeah, it is merging into in singular roles or more just top-down ownership, right? People are having a hard time with the titles, but in general, they kind of just leave the title, whichever one they think is more attractive for the person that they want to keep. Uh, there's a lot of product people with a design background. There's a lot of design directors I find has much stronger product sense, right? So this is, I mean, yeah, I'm seeing that all over the place. The titles really aren't changing, but the roles themselves are expanding
yeah.
horizontally. I'll get into more details on that.
Yeah. And Ayana, I'm sorry if I'm saying, let me know how to say your name. Did you have a question?
Yeah, very short question, actually to Rebecca. Do you have any concerns about sharing data that is private to your company with those tools that maybe they are public?
Um, so for example, with ChatGPT, we're on the team plan, I think it is, where you can basically say, don't use our data for training. So in that way, yes, I've tried to look at ways to not do that. I'm more concerned as we get into, we're just going to be kicking off our first customer facing AI feature set. And I'm more concerned about like, how do we address some of that? Because we're also planning to use data that actually comes from partners. And so we're grappling with, well, what does that mean? Are they going to come and stop us from doing that? And how do we handle that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a big question. I don't
It's
really know.
very complex. Yeah, because we had to deal, we're fintech, and so there was a lot to sort through. So a customer facing launch took so many cycles. But the thing is, once you've done one, then you know how to do the set. But the first set, I've
Yeah.
had my rounds for chief privacy officer, chief legal, chief compliance, risk, infosec, like many times, stated, restated, show them where the data is, who has access, who has control, who.
Yeah. I think that this is a very, like, I think, pertinent conversation. We're just a plug, we're doing a panel on this at the conference, and we have someone who was like the number 2 like legal counsel at Meta, who now works at a firm with many of our sponsors. And you know, it's like, even putting in ideas of what you might build that are out there, there's just sort of like, what are the right guidelines from like a regulation perspective if you're in finance, or even just from a compliance perspective, and how you're using these tools. Like, it's one thing, I think, when we're in experimentation, trying things out, but when you're launching more at scale, like, what are the rules and regulations that might bite you in the future? And then, Rebecca, I think that's an important one, is if you're using like what other data is coming in, and what are the regulations and compliance that you have to do with your partners. I think that this is a really big area, as AI is more integrated in the way we work in all parts of it. So
Yeah.
I'm
That was
going to
actually
note
the
this down.
hardest part.
Yeah, we'll need to do more sessions. Go ahead, Yuying.
Yeah, no, that was actually the hardest part, the client piece, because we were B2B fintech, and every client agreement had a different tolerance for what of the data can be used for what, even if it's to provide them a service that they might benefit from. So that is literally the most complicated. Um, okay, speaking of which, we're jumping straight into the product strategy, right? I think last year, mostly when people pushed AI, most of your leadership was still comfortable with, okay, let's just make our company work better, faster, more efficient. Whether or not AI is integrated in to drive revenue, drive market, drive expansion was not a must-have yet. Right now, based on everything I've seen, everybody's like, well, it's a no-brainer. Of course, we have to change our company, but it has to be part of our strategy of how we make money in our business model. At this point, it's a must. So here's, and then I have my notes here. What I put here is relevant right now, probably for the next 6 months. If I were answering this question 6 months prior, I would have different focus. So this changes with where the market is and where the capability is to go. If I integrate it this way, is that going to make a difference? So the first piece, I mean, as you can tell, the underlying to all this, we're beyond chatbots. If you're like, it's a chatbot, forget it. That's not going to fly anymore. The first thing that you're looking for, what I call the use case, is you're looking for something that has a 0 to wow. Now, depending on your industry and your product, when I say 0 to wow, how much time do you need to demonstrate that in? I put in 5 minutes literally as a midpoint, because unfortunately right now, because of what ChatGPT is doing, Lovable, all this, people are used to this like a minute to 30-second to 5 minute of 0 to wow, that their expectations when you go, my product now has AI integrated in, it needs to be at least close to that level, or they're just like, okay, which means it won't have any impact on your target market expansion or any of those things. So that piece actually will probably filter out a lot of things for you, for where do I focus on for that product strategy piece with AI. Whether it's 5 minutes, you can adjust for it. Now, the second one, of course, right now, it's no longer okay to just, so last year at this point, you can put up AI features in your product strategy. That whole impact was branding. Like, yep, we're AI forward, we're AI, look at this, we have adoption, etc. And doesn't really touch revenue, target market, and all those things. That's no longer enough. Market expansion. So how does this addition of the AI of your 0 to wow, what is it aimed at? And it needs to have a specific aim. Am I getting to a target market segment that previously didn't really consider us a product? Am I with this actually increasing the retention of my existing customers or their length of engagement, right? Am I using this to actually expand to a global market? One of the ones, and I don't understand why people miss this so often, the international reach that you're able to do with the multilingual capability that's fundamental to a lot of this AI kind of just gets ignored. Um, but the ones who are intelligent about this piece, I've seen them suddenly go, oh, wait, you mean we can be global, multilingual right now? And that will be significant with actually very low effort and not a lot of risk, right? So the market expansion piece, number one, in terms of adding AI to your product strategy, if it isn't aimed at one of these, it's not good enough anymore just to have that branding. And then if you're doing marketing, you have to be specific. It can't just be like, well, we added AI, it's going to grow our market. It has to be, right, we're going to address the attrition problem. We're going to go after the segment that we didn't go on. You know what? We are adding the Spanish speaking population to target, because why wouldn't we, right? So, of course, a lot of my background was in ed tech. And it amazes me that not every one of them is all of a sudden just like, okay, we just launched 3 languages. Like, why wouldn't you? Um, okay, so that's the second piece for product strategy, strategic AI integration. The third one, I know we're just getting used to being able to talk to the code, the data, all of this. But right now, for any integration, because when you're putting into strategy in terms of execution, if we're coming out, we're looking at the fastest 6 months, not because it takes that long to build it, but it does take that long to get through your legal regulation and all of those the risk pieces. But right now, what you are planning for to launch has to be agentic, has to be do it for me, not do it myself, or tell me how to do it and I will go do it. Right now, when I talk to ChatGPT, if it goes, oh, this is how you do it here, do it manually, I'd be like, what? No. The expectations of what we're at with your agent mode, with your MCP, with all of these things here, when you're adding AI now to your product strategy, it has to be do it for me. It doesn't have to be fancy do it for me. It has to be one piece that they care about that's really specific to you and your product. That's the one that makes a difference. So whether or not that's building an agent, that's building an MCP server. I just watched an MCP server launch for Pictory for end-to-end automation. That's where the market expecting all this today. This is what makes a difference today. Now, like I said, oh my, can I say that this will be the same in 6 months? Wow, I don't know. But for now, this is what I see makes a difference. All right. So let's look at a real case study. Now, I will tell you that most of the companies I work with hasn't got far enough for me to give you a great case study of the ones that I work with. They kind of are like, okay, we got the chatbot and Copilot. That's great. What's next? We have some cool plans, right? So most the companies I work with are right now in that like what is next? So I'm going to show you Canva because I follow them really closely in terms of how they did this, and I think they did this well. Okay. Now, what worked? Canva actually started pretty early. 2 years ago, when I first came in as head of AI, one of the earliest features that I would demonstrate with Canva, and I called it at the time, that was the cleanest zero to wow, which is a single sentence generated presentation with designs and slides. Now, for people internally who are not normally the PPT jockeys, like me, okay, right now I'm using Gamma because I've leveled up, but this is 2 years ago. 2 years ago, without this, my PPTs are white background, black text, bullet points. At most, I had like, a little bit of formatting. I copied in a data picture, right? So that zero to wow at that time of like, oh, generate me a presentation on, AI's impact on the healthcare industry for 30 minutes. It brought in templates, it brought in designs, you could make them adjust. Suddenly I was better than white background, black screen. This was 2 years ago. Actually, the tech is very easy, but they had that 0 to wow. And then you saw the little features, they call them the magic features. First, in terms of the layout editing, the magic write to help you write the content in your designs, etc. They all tied in. They were sprinkled individual features, but they all tied into what I call their key customer task and workflows. If you think about who Canva's key customers and workflows are, I call it they're the design adjacent. Like I can't really do it well, but I want it to be better, and maybe I'm not a full designer. This is not the creator side, but for professionals like us, and a lot of us want it to be better, but we're not super good at actually all those things. So all those are the key tasks, and the templates was a key part of why we were in Canva, right? Because we could just pick from other people's great designs. And those early features, they were small, they were not super technical, but they were all grouped around this. And I found them very useful, right? Highly useful. I recommended it internally. It was one of the very early AI features that I turned on for the entire organization, if you can imagine, 2 years ago. And they all had focus on a single workflow. Now, if you follow their evolution, now there's Canva AI. And if you follow what Canva AI does, you go in and it's like, there is code for me, there is design for me, there is image generation, there is video generation. Now, when this was announced, Canva did a great marketing campaign. I was very excited. I was like, I need to be on the wait list. I refreshed constantly to see if I could get access. I'm like, oh, it's because I've been playing with the other ones, but there's issues. I wanted to leverage what Canva already had with all of their community designs, things I could pick from. I'm like, oh, and code. And one of the other things I was looking for was for a simple website that can be generated that had all of these design options, right? I was very excited. When it came live, code for me, I tried it. I'm like, huh. So number one, it was unstable. We won't talk about that. It broke on my first try. And then I went through, I immediately tried the two things. I'm like, ooh, presentation or make me a website, right? Make me a LinkedIn carousel. Does it do those things? If you look even right now, if you go under the Canva code for me and their use cases, I go, what's use cases they say I should use with this? There's things like little interactive games in there, an interactive timeline. And I'm just looking at it, I'm like, okay, cool, but I never come to Canva to try to create something like this in the first place. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? Whether in my business presentation, no. In my social media, no. Am I like maybe I would put it on my website. I don't know what I would do with an interactive timeline on my website. So unfortunately, even though the technical that came in was much more advanced, it didn't match. Didn't match their core customer, their core workflows. And I actually gave the feedback to the investor for Canva. I'm like, he was like, yeah, they're working on it. And then if you look at overall Canva AI, it's great for branding, for the marketing, all these different workflows underneath there is all different. And they're all individual buttons, like design for me, code for me, right? And I'm just like, okay, this is just an umbrella for things I don't really do under, like, yeah, anyway. So I still track them. They're doing a lot of great things, but it's not quite at the cohesive strategic place where they should be. They actually did pretty well early on. So I think that's a good case study if you kind of go through their features and think through, if you were that leader, what would you have done? Oh, yeah. Before I jump in, so this was the strategy piece. Any questions before I go into the final? I'm gonna take that as a no. Okay. Okay. The organization redesign gets ignored, whether a lot, whether on purpose or not, or we tend not to think about this. We are at a point, once you go through those, you understand what a single person can do, that the boundaries of the rules now and how your team is organized now starts to no longer make sense. One of the earliest questions I do get at this point is usually, how do I hire? And I go, before we go into how do you hire and who's the right person to hire, what about the rest of your organization? Like, what? So, rethinking roles. The first thing, I'm in LA, so I always use this Hollywood example of the actor slash writer slash editor slash director slash, right? But that's literally where we're going towards, right? Most of us don't, I'm sorry, not most of us, I'll speak for myself. I barely write full sentences by myself anymore. I'm mostly I have the ideas, I blurt it out, I get a draft, and then I start to edit, right? I'm like, hopefully I don't, when you meet in person, be like, oh my God, you can't speak an entire sentence because there's no way I know. In terms of the editing, the directing is very much an analogy for being able to direct, whether it's agents or GBTs, the orchestration, and the producer. I use the producer role as the person responsible for the outcome at the end. When you look at everything, go, okay, this has to change. We have to change the AI. We have to change the approach. We have to change what have you. So this is kind of my analogy for where I think is going. So when we say it's going to be more outcome focused or domain specific teams, this is the reason. You will have one person that can cover many roles of what's the role defined is today. We start to see that even with engineering. So you're Lovable, you're VO. Now, fintech, we were very back end heavy, very few front end developers, right? Even less design. You plug in Lovable, you plug in V0, all of a sudden people are like, oh, well, I am back end slash front end. Very capable, especially when you're a fintech, you're not really going for fancy UI, you just need something that works. That's already happening in both the technical side as well as the product side. Not all organizations have both design, UX, product management, analyst, research, etc. Right now, those missing gaps. This is what starts to happen first. The missing gaps of the roles are going to get covered by people who just want to do that piece. That's the beginning. That's the one that everybody's comfortable with. Oh, hey, I can cover more. The thing that's going to be next is, okay, if all of my people can do more and more, you will start to see who stretches and who doesn't. And unfortunately, I will tell you that there will be people who don't stretch, and you can't predict it based on their background. Like in the seniority, you go, they should be, they shouldn't be. I have not been able to find a way where I look at their LinkedIn and be like, yep, that one's going to work, that one's not going to work. But once you kind of know who stretches and who doesn't, the organization that is starting to make sense is to be domain specific. The thing that you always get into when all the AI start to get used, we go, wait, did that hallucinate? Was that a good answer? Is that the right template I should have my team uses? And the person that makes that judgment is the person who understands the domain. So the domain becomes a true ownership, and teams formed around that. Oh, just go to that team for anything around this. They will figure all the rest of it out, whether it's one person, two person, three person has a skill, etc. That seems to be what happens. Evaluation and escalation, I started to talk about that. Whether you set this at an organization level of here's tools, here's frameworks, but evaluation and escalation, sometimes we don't think about it in the product organization. So support organization, escalation, everybody knows they need a path, they need to understand when to escalate, etc. We tend not to think about it for product organization. evaluation is different than QA, right? Evaluation, when we're dealing in this case of what is good enough, there is no like, it worked, it didn't work. What's hard about what I'm talking about here, what is good enough, is no checkbox, uncheckbox, right? And then, of course, the last of it is the frameworks. So when I go good enough, and then you actually have to go, usually you need the frameworks to go, what gets us great? And when do we need great? Yeah. So not good enough, and great. These are all like very, I call them blobby things. There's no clean, like, yes, no, but that's what it gets to. Rebecca,
Rebecca.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a question about data. So one of the things that I'm finding is just, how important good data is for your AI features and making sure that whatever you need is accessible. So how do you see that fitting into the roles? Like, where is that? Who's doing that? How does that work?
So that has been one of the hardest when it comes to AI features, is driven by generative AI. Your traditional AI and data teams are used to data engineering and controlling for quality, consistency there. Generative AI, you do still have to control your data source, but was that good enough? Was that clear enough? Did that have the right content in the right structure for the AI to give you consistent, reliable, correct output? There's no teams today that know how to do that off the bat. Your best case, you are looking for data scientist backgrounds who specialize in NLP and NLU. You have to get people who understand language, taxonomy, and structure of language, right? That's the piece that people kind of get confused. You just throw it at their data engineering team and be like, okay, make this better. I'm like, those people can't be better. And the data scientist with the NLP and NLU background alone won't be enough. You have to have that domain expertise, because sometimes uh, it is really specific to the domain in terms of getting that right and consistent. Yeah. Revital?
Yeah, Ravital, I had a quick question on the domain specific. I'm trying to understand how is it different from what's going on right now, because already if there is an application, there are teams related to, authentication, teams about safety, teams about, specific persona. How the domain specific team using AI would be different than, the current structure.
Yeah. So depending on your company, a lot of companies have functional, function-based roles and organization, right? So you have your development team, under a development manager, you have your QA teams, your product teams, etc. There's usually more loosely vertical, like, okay, I have a Scrum team around authentication. But everybody's role, I'm the product manager, I'm the what have you. I'm a product manager that owns authentication and first experience and whatever. I'm a dev and I own like these other two things, right? So that verticality is very loose. Now, if I am able to do both, like, okay, I check the bug, I understand it, I fix it, I launch it and deploy it. That vertical domain, so you have an authentication owner, that owner probably could do from product to dev to QA to deployment. And now that team, you go, okay, well, actually, I need 3 of those guys, right? Are they an authentication dev? I mean, you can call them whatever you want to, but their boundaries are going to be really different. That's what I mean.
Got it. So there within that domain, that one person would be doing variety of things. Kind of the boundaries between the roles is kind of becoming loose. Got it.
Yeah. So it's a great way for me to go into the best example I've seen, because it's most companies are still evolving. But if you ever look deeply into how Lovable as a company is built, they actually talk about how different when we go AI native. Now, being able to do this from the ground up, of course, is far easier. You decide up front how you're going to organize your teams. But if you look into how they actually do this, when they hire, AI fluency and AI orchestration is baseline. That's for every single hire. It's not for the product team. It's every single hire. And there's a default to using AI. So when I say like, I don't think I've written a complete sentence without AI now anymore. What they look for is literally everybody that defaults to using AI first, whatever it is they're doing. And what they do, not only do they understand AI, is they know how to pick the AI for the thing that they're doing, right? So that's the beginning of orchestration. Now they're getting a lot more advanced. The second one, generalists versus specialists. They don't hire specialists. They hire generalists. One of their hiring criteria, they actually look at, so they list out the skills a candidate could bring in. The more skills, the more different set of skills they have, their higher rank goes up. And then they compare the set of skills that someone is bringing in relative to the skills they already have within the company. So they're looking for addition for as many new skills as possible when they hire someone new. Okay. So they're looking for people who, with enough skills and AI help, can start to drive things end to end. The multiplier mindset is more of a mindset. So they look at every person as a multiplier on the entire organization. Like I said, this is something that's far easier to do when you're building it from the ground up. Harder to do when you're an existing organization. Go, how does this person change the entire org? How does that multiplier? Drivers, not passenger. That's a very much a mindset of problem solving. And here's the other part of this is, so we are used to Scrum teams. We don't normally shuffle Scrum teams around. Now, if you hire everybody that is AI fluent and orchestrators of using AI with broad skill set, so the teams form based on problems. They solve it and they move on. Okay, we're going to solve this. This is the team. We're solving it. Move on, right? Which I think if you look at the original philosophy around some of the Scrum teams, it's behind there. But now you can actually just truly do that if you are hiring this way with the tool sets and workflow this way. And of course, the cadence is product led. So this is very much user problem, product centric. So their cadence is whatever problem they're solving whenever that comes out, etc. Replit is a little bit different. Replit does a very specific per week lovable. You'll see big things start come through in terms of how they launch, etc. There's some other interesting notes about how lovable is structured. They don't do remote. They offer good relocation because they're like, we need people to learn next to each other. They do a lot of this pairing up that you guys talked about to kind of drive the entire culture forward. I also found that very fascinating. The thing that I've seen, the do not piece is the thing that I've seen that happens in a lot of organization that goes, hey, okay, we're going to do transformation. AI is these special genius people, and we got to get some PhDs, and we got to get some like 10 years of Gen AI experience. I'm like, Gen AI hasn't been around that long. But they hire this tiger team with like a big name, and like, you're like, oh my God, it's so smart. Behind them, they over index on the deep technical, the years of ML, DL. Like, I'm like, I know what that is. You actually don't need it. I'm like, what do you need that person to do? They're not going to change your workflow for market research. And the other thing, of course, is what everybody's looking for right now is the thing that I want to do. Have you done something exactly like this? And this is what they tend to hire for. I kind of laugh at job descriptions a lot. Very different. For me, this is the key of like, nobody's really thinking about the organization redesign at this point that they need to. And I just realized I'm a little bit over time, but that was actually the end. This is the order I would do all of these things in. We'll leave that with the slides, and sorry, over time. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Substack, and yes, I do teach a vibe coding course if you're interested in the prototyping piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Yuying, and thanks for everyone for joining. We'll share slides out in the community. We'll probably shoot you an email as well for the Maven codes, and hopefully we'll see you at the conference in September, whether it's in person or online. Thank you again, Yuying. I touched upon so many important things, so many things to double click on. And if you have more questions, reach out to us, put your questions in the community, and great to see everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.